Hey, it's Tristan here with U.S. Party Company, and here with Sizzle from Sizzling Balloons. And we thought we would do some interviews of people in the industry. So we're just going to ask some basic stuff, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you can learn a thing or two, who knows? We all have different stories and we all come from different backgrounds. So it is kind of interesting. It was kind of funny because I had a conversation with someone yesterday about how long I've been doing balloons. And I was like, gosh, I was 13. I remember having a parade cart in the parade when I was 13. So that's a long time ago. So, Sizzle, tell us what you do.
I twist balloons at restaurants and private parties and corporate parties in Seattle. I'm also an assistant for Steve Jones and Alexa Rivera for balloon designers. If I'm working, I'm probably touching a balloon. It's like my full time, every single day job. And it's been that way for 7 years. This is my seventh year. It was my seventh year in the end of January.
Well,
So
congratulations. 7 years, a pretty good stretch, you know. Still
yeah,
doing balloons, still playing with them.
I'm experimenting with clowning as a whole. I've called myself Sizzle the Clown for longer than I actually did it well, but
Right.
I feel like clowning is more and more a part of the services I personally offer, and I'm pretty happy with that.
So,
There's a lot to be learned from the art of clowning.
right. So, in your opinion, clowning as makeup clown for you, or are you more of a non makeup clown?
I started clowning working at a theme park, which I'm full whiteface because it's scary clowning. And
Oof.
because I did scary clowning for so long, I realized what the impact of makeup is on like face to face interactions. And now that I get to make my own brand and kind of build my own clientele base, I don't really like wearing makeup.
Build my
I
own
like
clientele
I,
base.
I like it for my own vanity, but I noticed that because of the overwhelming negative reactions to clowns in our society, like the face doesn't necessarily work out. I wanna wear a red nose. I feel like that's
Right.
indicative as indicative of clowning as I really want to go. But I think that clowning is more of a verb than it is like a character. So like um I will happily put a face on and it makes me feel really pretty, but it's not as important I think as the grand majority of the clown community says it is.
Right. And so, I mean, was there a point where you realized, wow, people don't really like scary clowns, or was there other things that contributed to that? Obviously, recent movies and such.
I think that the clown community doesn't like scary clowns. I think that the United States market as a whole adores scary clowns. Like, of course, there's outliers, there's colorophobia, and people just don't react well to something with a big red mouth and a big red nose and ridiculous looking eyes. But I think that the reason why scary clowns are so popular in general is because it's a it's a character that is easily identifiable and is both funny and scary at the same time, which like I feel like there's a reason why it's so popular.
Right. So I didn't even realize until I listened to the Air podcast that Andy puts out that you were the winner of basically the golden ticket, so to say. So tell us what your experience at Twist and Shout was.
Oh my god, it was so great. I'm so happy that I got that experience and I really can't wait to do it again. It was like eh, Twist and Shout is like 5 days, but for me the rush was like 3 weeks because I had to figure out how to get there and I didn't expect to go. So I was like I had like rabbit heart trying to figure my life out the entire time and once I got there like the the emotional release was so big and wild and it was not what I expected. I didn't really have any expectations, but I didn't realize how visceral the balloon community is. Like everybody was highly emotive. Everybody was overwhelmingly caring. Everybody was like at their most excited is like a whole group of people. And that was like just being in the same room as people making whatever they felt like was glorious. And
Right.
I want that 24/7.
I think we all do. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, I will admit to myself, my first twisting convention was last year. Was this your first twisting convention?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I've never
So
I went to the American Clown Academy in August and I went to this. So like I don't like to leave Washington. So I this was my first foray into the East Coast, let alone like the national clown balloon twisting community as a whole.
yeah,
And it was great.
and that was the one I believe in Atlanta. No, last year.
Yeah,
Yep.
just outside of Atlanta. It was in Georgia.
Right. Yep. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So, it's funny because when I first went to a twisting convention, I had no idea what to expect. I had never worked with twisters in the first place. But you're right. You have to tell yourself they are very giving people very open to sharing ideas, and there's a lot of great people in the twisting industry. To be quite honest, that honestly probably I've overlooked for so long since I've been more on the decorator side.
Yeah.
So it definitely does wake up yourself. I mean, I've been trying to learn to twist even more than I have. I know sometimes it's very hard for me to attend classes, especially as a sponsor. So it's nice to be able to now be able to still twist and learn and do all that. And it's definitely something that's invested in your education. So, what tips would you give somebody that's going to a balloon convention for the first time that takes what to expect?
You don't bring a lot of shit with you. Like my first day, I was like, I'm gonna have downtime. I need like 2 books, and I need my ukulele, and I need my backpack, and no, I didn't need any of that. In fact, it was too much work. I needed my pump, and I needed something to write something down with, and I didn't have to bring like half the crap I put in my bag. I needed more space to bring things home with. And like I I think that being like putting yourself in the space to create and make sure that you're not going to be overwhelmed. Like give yourself space to process. And there was one day, the first day, where I was just so overwhelmed I had to find a corner to sit in for like a good 30 minutes to let my brain catch up. And that's perfectly fine. Like let yourself do that or else it's going to be overwhelming the entire time.
It's
It's
funny
like,
you say that because I remember in 2013 I went to my first trade show of anything, and I mean this trade show was like football field, and like
yeah.
we all know what it's like to have an unsurreal moment and be somewhere. We all know what that feels like, and that was me in 2013. And to go back on that and know that back then actually I wasn't even working. I took my last $1,000, went to this trade show. It was called Halloween and Party Expo. Went to this
Ooh.
show, saw all these great things, saw new product, but I also saw old vendors. So I was actually at one time I actually had been buying from US Balloon for a while, like dating back to 2003. In all seriousness, I was devastated when they were bought out in 2015. They bent over backwards for me. I mean, some of the stuff they arranged with me to resell balloons was phenomenal. But they're the reason why I got into balloons again. They said to me, well, what can we do to get you back as a customer? And I looked them in the face and I said, nothing. I don't want to sell balloons. And so I basically like remember that the most out of my whole first convention dash trade show experience. And I came home and I realized that Ninja Turtles was resurgent. And now, I'm an adult, so it's not like I remember Ninja Turtles as a kid. Like, do you remember like when they had the little Drake's pie with the little Ninja Turtle custard filling and all that? Like, I miss
Yeah.
those days.
I think I still have my pizza shooter from when I was really
Oh, the
little.
pizza shooter. Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
I remember the pizza shooter. So it was funny. So they basically said, well, what can we do for you? And so I realized Ninja Turtle was coming back onto the scene. So back in 2012, 13, I was actually selling restaurant equipment, believe it or not, and restaurant supplies. And so I had an eBay account and I was selling on eBay. And I was like, oh, wow, everybody wants Ninja Turtle balloons. So I actually reached out to them and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm interested. And so uh, I tried to take out a $250 credit line with them, and they told me no. And I said to myself, oh. So I made sure to let them know that they told me anything I need. Uh, so I told them what the situation was. I was like, yeah, you just declined me for a $250 credit limit. I'm just trying to sell the balloons, at the end of the day. And I remember them finally approving it. And we got to a point, like, in a very short amount of time that, like, let's face it, $250 doesn't go far when you're trying to not pay for balloons up front and then
No.
pay for them later,
I think my twister order every time I'd like probably do a twister order every 2 weeks or so, and I just barely cross the 200 mark every single time. And it's not like that's a lot of balloons. In fact, I could
No, it's
probably
not.
spend more.
You're right on that one. I mean, it's funny because we start like putting things in our cart and we're like, oh, we're gonna spend like $100, and by the time it's $200, and you're like, oh, I have to have the new uh Battalitex Red Reflex. Like, I mean, it's a given,
I want that so badly. Like, I can't wait to make the Tony Stark Infinity Gauntlet. I'm waiting so not patiently at all. I saw
Right.
Dan Staples'
Oh,
Infinity
that's the same
Gauntlet
thing
with the
Dan did,
red,
correct?
and I lost my I think part of being a twister is like deep down inside you're still a little kid. So you're talking about building your business, but you said Ninja Turtles, and I was like, I want to ask this guy about his favorite Ninja Turtle just so bad right now. Who's your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Well, I honestly don't remember, to be quite honest. I don't. I really
It's
don't.
okay.
It's funny because even to this day, like when we used to have some product of it, and they used to be like, "Yeah, I need a Michelangelo um, bubbles," because we used to sell bubbles that came out of a wand, and this is probably in 2014, and they'd be listed by like the color, so like the name and the color. I could never get it straight. So to this day, I couldn't even tell you who's who.
I think my absolute favorite is Donatello because he was like reshaped as the nerd in the most recent movie. But ever since I was like very small, I thought Mikey was just the coolest. He's like the cool pizza dude, man, and like
Yeah.
the like South California surfer dude trope is my favorite. Like, my favorite trope. Like, if there was somebody making a massive bioepic of my life and I could choose anybody to play me in that movie, it would be young Pauly Shore, like, unironically. What's up? What's this all?
Right. So basically, on closing thoughts. So, I mean, you've been in the business 7 years, but someone that's new, going back to kind of when you started out, what would you tell someone just starting out? I mean, I know right now it's kind of hard to tell anybody anything, but let's all be optimistic. It's gonna pass and everything's gonna be fine. But what would you give somebody for word of encouragement for someone that's relatively in the 1 month to 2 years range?
I think that if you're making art, that no matter what, it's going to be an uphill struggle because you have to figure out your flavor, right? You have to figure out what kind of art you're going to produce. You're going to make a ton of mistakes. I think that the first my first piece of advice is to be patient with yourself. You're probably not going to make very much money when you first start, but it's like an investment of passion. If you love it, then you love it, and you'll probably make money doing it. If you don't love it, then it's probably more like a hobby. And
Yep.
it's a thing that you will do to make yourself happy. And just because it makes yourself happy doesn't necessarily mean that your clientele is not going to love it too. Like,
Right.
if you don't have passion in the thing that you're doing, then it may, like, that's not necessarily what this industry is about. Like, you're making art for the sake of making art and giving it to people that you love. So I think, number one, follow your heart. Number two, be gentle with yourself and don't expect success immediately, because I don't think that that's not, like, you're gonna pop your entire first bag. That's how that works. And I think number three is get yourself involved in the community as much as you can. There are people who've been doing this for ages that have so much good advice. There's some people that don't have that good advice, but ultimately ultimately knowing the people that love and care for the same thing that you do is going to be, it's going to make the days where you're like, what am I even doing with my life right now, make a little bit more sense. Because I think all of us as artists have that. And it doesn't matter what kind of art that you're making, whether it's balloons or like you're being a graffiti artist or a watercolor artist or all the things. Be genuine in how you create. Like, the way you do that is being real with your community, being gentle with yourself, and allowing yourself to find what moves your passion.
Right. Now, I know there's tons of people out there, so this list could be really, really long. But who would your top three influencers really be that you kind of like, follow, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, or any other means, to be honest?
Okay, so
besides the master of links, Steve Jones.
If I don't say Steve Jones is like the largest like pusher of my art, I'd be lying. Like, Steve is as much my mentor as he is my boss. I think that seeing him and his passion is definitely one of the things that made me realize that this could be my job. Of course, I love Annie Banani and Buster Balloons. I think that they're quality, like, I think they're just quality people, let alone like big names in the industry. I think what they're doing with focusing on shows is very clever, and it allows them to kind of cater to a large audience, and it doesn't seem like they really like doing the one-on-one thing, and that's something that I want to move towards, is doing shows. I think when I first started, I wanted to full on be the Brenyans. I thought they were just the cutest couple. I tried to do like Shayna and her like little look with the cute little outfits. The 50s flavor is something that I wanted to pull off. That's not my flavor. Turns out I'm not that person, but the Christmas with the way that they handled themselves was excellent. And the two directions that they've taken their art is really inspiring, because they both became super cool individual people outside of their little, like, their coupleness. And I think that that's a clever way to move, like, just develop your life. You know what I mean? I think that Phileas Flash is hilarious.
He's always funny.
Yeah.
He's always funny.
So his Fizzlewit fairy findings, like, deep down inside, I'm definitely a pixie human. And he said one time that he was trying to figure out how to put a bike bell in his shoe so he could talk to fairies. And are you serious? That is so brilliant. Like, yes, please keep doing that. Whatever you're doing, just follow your heart, because clearly that brain is brilliant. And I am currently being directed by Danny the Idiot, and he's He's so precious. He's so clever. He doesn't have to say anything. He just
Right.
emotes so well. And I'm a big chatterbox, so if I could like take some of his like quiet gentleness and like bring it in and tell stories without words, I think that I'd be a better entertainer overall. There's
Right.
just so many people. Like, that's a
I
really
know
hard
the list can
question.
go on and on and on. I mean, literally, if there was time to the end of time, I mean, we could go
Yeah.
on forever and ever with that list.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
any closing thoughts? Anything that you see in the future?
I
The
think
change, maybe even what's going to happen after we get out of what we're going to get out of shortly.
I think that a global shutdown of all of the things that we're used to doing is scary. It's scary, but it's also a opportunity in as much as like nothing is the same as we're used to it, and change is scary. But as artists, we're very naturally gifted at being clever. And I think that we're going to see some in the next couple of months, however long this is going to last. In the next little bit, we're going to see a lot of very clever artistry from our community, whether it's connecting with a internet audience or coming up with different ways to build things or like a growth overall. Like, this has the opportunity of allowing us to expand in ways that we might not have based on like what we think our consumers want. Right now, our consumers just want to be entertained. And we have, like, the internet allows us so many opportunities to connect with a different audience. And each individual balloon artist has their own communities. I am so interested in seeing how this strengthens our communities overall between us and the people that live around us, as well as us and like our balloon community in itself. I'm just as concerned as I am hopeful.
So I just want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to be interviewed and answer some
Sweetheart,
great questions.
it is so not busy right now. Like, it's the exact opposite of busy. I'm running out of things to do. I am getting so good at Sudoku right now. It's ridiculous. So it's gonna be a good time. I'm glad I had a chance to talk to you.
Oh, you too. Have a wonderful day. I actually lost my sound, so that's kind of like I didn't even know what was going on at the end. So,
That's me
so I
being weird.
apologize. But till next time, be safe.
Absolutely. Have a great day, dude.
You too.